It's taught at Basic Academy, it's taught at our Advanced Academy, it's taught all over the country. And what the 21-foot rule is, or says, is that if we're standing 21 feet apart and I have a knife out, I can run and attack you with that knife before you would be able to get your gun out of a holster and fire. That's the general concept of the 21-foot rule. And on the first day of our defensive tactics training, now they call it control tactics, in our Advanced Academy they did a scenario like that, and they call it action versus reaction. Reaction is always going to be slower than action. If you make a decision that you're going to run at me with a knife, I have to process that and react and respond, and I'm going to lose every time. And they had one of the guys I got hired with, a recruit, and then a trainer, and they kind of did that, and they distracted him. They'd ask him questions. What's your name? What day is this? So he's having to think about stuff, and then they'd run at him, and they would get him every time. So that's the general concept of the 21-foot rule. I mean, there's nothing in our policy, about the 21-foot rule. It's just something that's taught as a general guide for safety, to kind of gauge, what type of distance, just to be aware of that somebody can cover a lot of ground very quickly and hurt you before you can react. So, and that's why we always talk about time, tactics, and resources available. We're always trying to mitigate those circumstances, put some chairs in between us, or back up, or wait for more people, or disengage, or whatever it may be to mitigate that, to keep us safer. Maureen? Yes?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I would like to donate a body cam when you're ready for it.
Okay.
I'll give you my name and phone number and address, and I would like to do that.
All right. I'll get a hold of somebody in training and maybe get you in touch with them.
Okay.
I know we've done it before, or we've had people that have worn them. I think they had a few different brands, and they had people try them out, and I don't know what the result of that was, but they did that just to see which ones people like, what worked better. So I will talk to you after.
Okay.
If no one else, we can move on to Central City Concern.
Should I go? Well, I can tell you this, I'm Clay Cooper, I work for Central City Concern, I oversee our social enterprises and employment services. So, I have probably in this whole continuum of service is probably the most rewarding component in a lot of ways. Started working about 5 years ago, and we were helping about 200 people get jobs. In the last 12 months, we've helped over 800 formerly homeless people get jobs. Woo! I start with that because I want everybody to understand that these services that are provided upstream, they do work. And what I mean by that too is that what George was talking about in terms of when you're in a shelter and you get a good night's sleep and you get a warm meal in your belly, you're more likely to make a good decision, right? I think that's what we can all agree on, that if I'm tired and I've been sleeping outside and I'm hungry, I'm not going to make as good a decision as if I've had a good night's sleep and I got a full belly, right? So just a simple thing like that sometimes puts a person in a better space. And that's kind of just a little bit of where I'm headed here. So, but I'll back up a little bit because, like I said, I started working about 5 years ago. And one thing, like George and Karen were talking about, is that a lot of people come to Central City Concern from different situations. But one kind of consistent profile that I see is somebody who may have grown up in a household where one of their parents left, usually the father. Their mother might have been a drug addict. They may have been introduced to drugs at an early age, and then they were probably abused. Could have been sexual, could have been physical, could have been verbal. And so that kind of trauma starts to wear on somebody, right? I mean, they're told repeatedly that they're no good. They're never going to succeed. And at that point, they, as you can imagine, might start using drugs, might get addicted to drugs, and they're going to leave that home. And sure enough, they'll end up on the street, and they'll end up meeting people who are coming from the same environment. And so then those people then become kind of, because they relate to them, like a second family, or if not, a better family. So then they've got people who've got the same experiences, they've been abused, and they're on the streets, and their addiction starts to get a little bit stronger, right? So then when we try and work with them, we're not just asking them to stop using drugs, we're asking them to leave all their friends and their family. It's quite a challenge. You can imagine that's hard for anybody to think about, leaving the people who've been probably supported for you for a long time. So then, let's say somebody does go to a shelter, does get a good night's sleep, gets a good belly full of food, and decides, yeah, today's the day I'm going to go and I'm going to check myself in a detox. Because when you go off heroin, for example, that's a pretty painful experience, and it's a dangerous situation for your own health. So it's best to be in a controlled environment, like a detox facility, where you can be an inpatient for 7 days. And we've got one, but you'll have to help me with the numbers here. I think about 50 people show up every day, and they can take about 13. So that's kind of the tough number right there. So we catch somebody at a good time, and they've got about a 25% chance of even getting in. But if you show up 3 days in a row, they're going to take your name and number, and you're going to go ahead and you'll get in. So you've got to show up at 7 a.m. in the morning, potentially for 3 straight days. And then, you finish that and you're clean and sober, there's about a 25% chance you're going to get into our housing. So there's a pretty good chance you might get into another place, but another really good chance you're just going to have to go back out on the street. Maybe get into a shelter. So then, but if you're lucky, and you get into a shelter, you decide to make that decision, you get into our detox facility, and then you get lucky again and you get into our transitional housing, then that's a really good shot that you're going to make it, okay? And then after you've been there for a little while, the case manager is going to say, you know, you've done well, but we all know you're going to have to go out and get a job. And that's where they come over to me. That's my job. My job is to help our clients find jobs. So, I'd love to help more people, but those are the odds, those are the numbers, and that's the situation. So then what we do is, we have to deal with people, like I just described, who really lack a tremendous amount of confidence. You can imagine if they grew up in an environment where they were constantly abused, and maybe been out on the street for a long time, don't really have the skill set that they feel confident in. And everybody knows this. When you want to take on a job, you don't feel confident you can do the job until you do the job sometimes, right? That's kind of, it's a catch-22. Like, you want to do a job, but unless you've done the job, you don't always know you can do the job. So we deal a lot with that. So that's why we have what are called social enterprises, and these are, they're businesses, but they're not really based, we don't try and run them for profit. We try and run as many clients and training programs as we possibly can. So we hire as many people as we can. Jay will talk more about our street cleaning program, where we hire a lot of people. We hire our clients. We don't, we have some requirements, but we pretty much try and hire everybody who's going to apply. And what happens is then once they get a job with us, we have a pretty high expectation, right? They need to show up on time, they need to take instruction, they need to work on a team. But we call them social enterprises because a lot of people haven't really been in that kind of situation before and might become somewhat triggered by somebody telling them what to do. So our supervisors are really good at just having really good, calm conversations and reminding them, this is where we're going, we're going to get you a job in the future, you can do this, stick with it. You're not going to get fired today, but let's kind of keep working on stuff, okay? And so we have a kind of a forgiving but a very strict sort of supervision structure. And but after they've done that with us for a little bit, and those are all businesses where we have, we're supported with regular, like any business. We've got a street cleaning business that's supported by the Business Improvement District. We've got a coffee business. You'll find us in all the New Season stores, most of the Whole Foods stores, a number of other stores. We've got an on-call staffing business, just like any other business. And we have a bed business where we sell beds that resist bed bugs all across the country. So, but a lot of times what we really try and hard with is we've got employment specialists who work with our clients, and we found that versus taking our clients and trying to find one sort of industry and just start funneling them into one particular job, we found out what works best, and there's been evidence that proves this, that if we can find out what they're really interested in, we'll try and find them a job in that career. So if somebody's interested in working with animals, or if somebody's interested in the food industry, they want to be a cook, or if somebody's interested in maybe it's working on cars or going into trades and being a carpenter, we're going to try really hard to go and find those people a job, head in that direction, okay? And so now what's happened is that you can imagine, like, if you're a small business owner and you've hired somebody from us before, as opposed to posting that job on Craigslist and getting a whole bunch of resumes, you just call our employment specialist just like your own headhunter. And they'll say, hey, so you know, when you help me find that person for that job, it's worked out great. I got that same job open up, and our employment specialist says, you know what, I can get 3 people over there tomorrow. They'll have cover letters, resumes, interview, they'll be ready to go. We'll get them some new clothes, and they show up, and he'll interview all 3, and he'll pick one. All right, that's the trying service we try and provide. So it's really good for the small business. So out of those 800 plus people, we put them, they were employed at over 400, maybe 450 different employers. So all across Portland, those people are now finding jobs. So we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep plugging away. I feel real confident it works. I really do understand a lot of the situation you guys are talking about in terms of where you've got some people out there who just aren't ready yet. And not everybody we work with is ready to kind of take that final step. But that's the thing. I have never been able to pick who's going to succeed. It's the craziest thing. There's no way for me to figure out who's really ready and who isn't. And it just seems like something happens somewhere along the way, and then that person's ready. And so we just kind of have to cast a really wide net, catch everybody we can, and take those people when they're ready. So I'll stop there and take any questions you might have.
I guess employment's our thing.
I'm wondering why it doesn't appear that anybody is modeling your program after what my father's house does. They are very successful in what they do. And if you don't know about them, you need to look them up and talk to the executive director.
Well, could you tell me what you thought they did that was real successful?
First of all, they have to be clean and sober going in. That's for families. They're tested when they go in. One time you test positive, you're out. They don't mess around with them. That's it. And they know that. They have a huge warehouse full of clothes and furniture and kitchen utensils and anything that they would need to set up a place. They can stay there for up to 6 months. Very few of them ever need to stay longer. They will help them with a resume. They will get them interviews. Whatever they need to be successful, and they have like an 85% success rate. And it is a fantastic program, and I don't know, first of all, nobody can explain low barrier to me that makes any sense. I think the best way to go is to get people who are clean and sober, even if it's only been for a week, and say, okay, you've made this commitment, now we're going to help you. We're going to take you in, instead of taking in people who are, I don't think alcoholics are that, they're not out stealing cars and breaking into houses and doing all that kind of stuff to get one more bottle.
Are you crazy?
What planet?
What planet are you from?
I always say, oh my God, that's the drug addicts that are.
No, it's not. That is an ignorant statement.
No, that's
I will say this,
But everything you said, his services do.
well, and I think Karen can respond.
Yeah, so we have a similar, not exactly the same thing, but we do have a similar program. We have, it's called the Mentor Program, and it's basically a group of people who have been through recovery services, who then act as mentors to people who are also clean and sober, and very similar, high barrier, we would call that type of a program, where you don't get a lot of chances. And they pick people up at Hooper out of detox. They give them a home. We have a building downtown, the estate, and they get it's like an SRO building, but it's a nice room, bathroom, all that. They get a mentor. They go into outpatient treatment. The mentor, they do drug testing. They do a variety of other types of case management services. They're in treatment, and then they make a connection to Clay's program and the employment specialist. And so it's very similar. And the same thing, we have a way to get people stuff for their room and all that. We get them moving kits and everything. So it's a very similar model. And that works for some people, works really well. It doesn't work for everybody. And I know low barrier is really hard for people to understand because it does feel like, well, what are we doing? But some people just, they inch along slowly, and other people just take that first leap and get it the first time. And there's just, it just depends, right? We're going back to complicated. It just really depends on your history and what you trust and what you know and what you're able to do. So that model works actually really, really well. And we have similar 80-something% success rate with that program as well. And they do get into employment and their lives launch. And I was just at a county budget hearing, God, that was just last night, seems like a week ago already, where I had some of my lead people testifying because they're, again, people who are chronically homeless, multiple arrests, blah, 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 now working in housing and have a life. And then similar to, but low barrier entry, right? But same outcome. Similar to the mentors, very high barrier, same outcome. So just, you have something for everybody is what, the point is. But my father's house is an amazing program, I agree.
I belong to a club and we have an event every July and part of our proceeds go